Hello there. Suck it up, plebs. It's gonna be tax rises and public spending cuts across the board. Now, if you haven't already done so, please do subscribe and then like and comment below. Yes, just as the NHS puts out ads for diversity and wellbeing officers for a total wage of £700,000 a year, the news is coming thick and fast that everyone will be taxed to fill this 50 billion quid black hole that supposedly exists. When actually the country has a national black hole, the national debt of somewhere in the region of £2.5 trillion quid. That's what comes of listening to the idiots who said that we could borrow while interest rates were low with absolutely no problems. And there were a lot of those, especially on the opposition benches, who always demand we pay more and more out, and they see debt in the trillions as a good thing. But that debt gets enlarged every month. We borrow more than we take in taxes, which seems to be most months. And it's this 12-monthly unfunded deficit of 50 billion quid that the PM Rishi Sunak and his Chancellor Jeremy Hunt are trying to get back under control. And part of that will, of course, be the 6.8 million quid we spend every day on hotels, fueling Suella Braverman's invasion. And don't forget the billions for HS2 as well, and the projected 1.5 trillion for net zero. And the talk is that this 50 billion deficit will be split in half, with tax paying for one half of it and public sector spending cuts paying for the other half, with a Treasury source saying, "It's going to be rough." I take that to mean that it's going to be politically rough for the Tories when the people find out they're now going to have to pay for all that furlough, whether they benefited from it or not. But it's going to be phenomenally tough for the ordinary taxpayer. But this is just the response the big money men want to see, with the main driving force being our huge national debt. The debt markets are calling the UK political tune. And no, this is not capitalism, it is state enslavement to a debt that can never be repaid. And while the poor will get poorer, the wealthy will still get wealthier. The FTSE 100 and 250 have both gone up, so investors seem happy with all of this. With public sector workers facing a mere 2% pay rise, despite inflation running at 5 times that amount. But one Tory MP and former Health Secretary Matt Hancock has decided he doesn't want to hang around and help his constituents, so he's off to the jungle to be the 12th participant in "I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here." Celebrity. Well, it's got him suspended out of the Tory party for a start. Let's hope it's permanent. He seems to be more intent on pushing his new book than helping his voters. Anyway, that's just a sign of the political times and the sorts of people that big parties select to become your MPs. When these taxes get hiked, it will hit both people and business, but the wealthy and the large corporates won't notice much change and can always get their tax experts and accountants in to do the biz for them. And all that will happen is that politicians will dream up ever bigger plans for spending all that money on, instead of balancing the books for the long term. And the projections are that the Treasury will slice just about 37% of your earnings off in tax. Now bear in mind we still have a couple of weeks until the actual financial statement is made by Jeremy Hunt. So all this so far appears to be coming from leaks. The flying of kites to get you ready and softened up for the big tax onslaught. And we'll all end up with a lot less money to spend, and many small businesses will end up folding. I can see self-applications for bankruptcy as well as repossessions going through the roof too. Now, any Ramona claiming that the Northern Ireland Protocol must be followed to the letter to keep the peace had better start looking at reality and make an attempt to truly understand the many facets of the Belfast Agreement. because the Times reports today that we were just hours away from seeing a loyalist terrorist attack, and those groups have already threatened to end their ceasefires. The reason given is that loyalist paramilitary groups were concerned that London was close to handing some governance over Northern Ireland to Dublin instead of holding more Stormont elections. And this planned terrorist act was only stopped when Downing Street said the elections were going ahead. The protocol breaks up the UK, which disadvantages the Northern Ireland loyalist community. The protocol therefore breaches the Belfast Agreement, and under the withdrawal agreement, the Belfast Agreement takes primacy. The protocol must go. Now, in a touching scene, two men decided to do a flash mob-style bit of synchronised graffiti on the walls of an MI5 building in London, but they got a bit carried away in the process. I'm not sure it'll make it into the Tate Gallery though. However, it is strange that a group of eco-loons tried to get into Downing Street today, but were blocked and handled rather robustly by the police. No kid gloves today, it seems. Pity they don't do the same everywhere. And now we hear that the United States of America has just grown in size. Yes, I thought the US had 50 states. But President Biden has just updated us on the expansion.
And by the way, if they do, that means, not a joke, everybody, that's why we were defeated in 2018 when they tried to do it. We went to 54 states.
So the US now has 54 states. Well, as it has such open borders with Mexico these days, then Mexico might as well be the US 51st state. Then there's the place that Joe Biden seems to spend so much of his time. La La Land. That's the 52nd state. Then there's the island of incoherence, number 53. And of course the 54th state must be Northern Ireland, as he has declared himself Irish and he does appear a bit obsessed with it, doesn't he? And ending on the European Union, the latest out for the Eurozone is that inflation has climbed up to a record high of 10.7%. Yes, the Eurozone does have an inflation problem, although not many Ramonas will acknowledge that. As far as they're concerned, it's move along, nothing to see here, as they try and convince people we need to get back into the EU, or at least the single market, which is a non-starter, by the way. Anyway, this latest rise in Eurozone inflation will push the European Central Bank to raise rates again. They've already pushed them up by 2% over the last 3 months, but may be forced to hike them by another 0.75% or so very soon. While it's also being reported that the likelihood of a Eurozone recession is increasing. And that's despite Brexit, you know. On top of that, concerns are now being raised that the German pension system is just a few years away from collapse, with the problem being that there are only 2 workers for every retiree, and that is set to reduce to about 1.4 workers per retiree in the next few years as the baby boomers retire. And it seems that there's little appetite in the German political classes to bite the bullet and raise the retirement age. But surely they'll be forced to. And finally, when subscribing, please don't forget to press that little bell and also select the all option, or you won't get any notifications when I publish a new video. And thank you all so much for taking the time to watch the show.